Picture this. You're standing next to the Sphinx in Egypt, taking selfies with sand in your shoes, sweat in places you didn't know could sweat. Tourists all around, someone's yelling at a camel, all very expected. But just a few steps away, there's something most people miss. A cluster of giant limestone blocks, arranged like someone tried to play Tetris with skyscrapers. Welcome to the Sphinx Temple. Now, calling it a temple is generous. It's less place of worship and more architectural middle finger to physics. These blocks weigh up to 200 tons. That's the weight of about 130 Honda Civics, stacked and fitted so precisely you can't wedge a credit card between them. Try doing that with Bronze Age tools. Or, a rock and some good intentions. Here's where it gets spicy. This thing isn't even mentioned in ancient texts. No name, no dedication, no pharaoh selfie etched in stone saying Khafre was here. It just exists, silent, massive, and so out of place that even archaeologists get nervous around it. Most Egyptologists still insist it was built around 2500 BCE, because that's when the nearby pyramids were built, and sure, that sounds convenient. But this isn't your average pyramid. This is high-definition stonework with zero margin for error. No mortar, no do-overs. Just pure, don't mess this up, or the sun god will fire you precision. So the big question, if the ancient Egyptians built this, how? And if they didn't, who the hell did? Either way, someone thousands of years ago had the kind of stone-moving skills that would give modern construction crews an existential crisis. Let's get something straight. Ancient Egyptians loved writing things down. These people couldn't build a mud brick hut without slapping hieroglyphs on it like, built by Khemwaset, favorite son of Ramses, who definitely didn't steal the idea from his older brother. Pyramids, covered in inscriptions, tombs, graffiti central, even their grain taxes had more documentation than your last relationship. So why is the Sphinx Temple completely blank? Nothing. Nada. Zilch. Not a single hieroglyph, not a casual doodle, not even a sarcastic, "Thoth bless this mess," hidden behind a pillar. For a civilization obsessed with cosmic order, divine right, and making sure everyone knew exactly who did what. This is weird. It's like finding a massive Tesla factory in the middle of a desert with no logo, no manuals, and no sign of Elon anywhere. Some say this means the temple predates writing in Egypt. Others say it was so sacred they dared not inscribe it. But let's be honest, this was a culture that carved shopping lists into stone. If it were that important, they would have written something. Or maybe, and here's the spicy alternative, the reason there are no inscriptions is because the Egyptians didn't build it. Maybe they inherited it. Like, hey, look at this weirdly perfect stone thing we just found. Let's build a sphinx next to it and pretend it's all ours. Hey, don't judge. People claim ancient artifacts all the time. Museums are basically fancy lost and found bins for other people's history. You ever start digging a hole in your backyard and find something weird, like an old toy or an actual cursed doll? Now imagine digging near the Sphinx and uncovering an entire building made from blocks the size of buses. That's basically what happened when archaeologists realized the stone used to carve the Sphinx wasn't just discarded, it was recycled into a giant temple. Yes. The Sphinx Temple is built out of the very same bedrock they scooped out to make the Lion Man mystery statue next door. Which means one of two things happened. A. Some pharaoh decided to do a 2-for-1 construction special. Carve a big cat, then use the leftovers to build a temple. B. Someone way older than the pharaohs carved the Sphinx and built the temple all in one mysterious mega-project, then promptly disappeared like an ancient mic drop. Here's the kicker. The temple fits the quarry stones too perfectly. Not just we used the stone, more like we planned this from day one. That level of foresight, that's not wing it and pray Old Kingdom energy. That's IKEA for giants, pre-drilled hole, hyper-precision, next-level stuff. So now we have this eerie symbiosis, a lion-shaped statue and a stone temple, both likely carved at the same time, possibly by people who didn't bother to leave a signature. And the more we study the erosion patterns and sediment layers, the more it looks like this project might predate Egypt's known dynasties by thousands of years. Basically, it's like finding a fax machine in a caveman cave and going, yeah, probably just early Egyptians. Sure, Jan. All right, time to talk weather. specifically ancient weather, because nothing spices up archaeology like good old-fashioned climate science. You see the walls around the Sphinx enclosure, the trench carved out to free our favorite stone lion man from the bedrock, show signs of severe water erosion. Not sand-blasted, not wind-polished, water running down the walls. Now, if you've ever been to Giza, or seen literally any photo of it, you'll notice something. The place is a desert. And not just bring a water bottle desert. We're talking camels are optional but encouraged levels of dryness. Egypt hasn't had rainfall heavy enough to cause that kind of erosion in thousands of years. Geologist Dr. Robert Schoch took one look at that weathering and said, "Hey guys, I think this thing might be way older than we thought. Like pre-pharaoh, pre-pyramids, prehistory kind of old." He's talking before 5000 BCE, maybe even before organized agriculture. You know, back when humans were still figuring out how not to eat decorative rocks. Of course, mainstream archaeologists reacted calmly and with open minds. Just kidding, they lost it. Because if the Sphinx is older than we thought, then the temple is too. And if that's true, then the entire ancient Egypt built everything with slaves and copper chisels narrative starts to wobble like a pyramid built on a jello foundation. So here's the choice. Believe the erosion is just some weird desert illusion, or accept that someone was building stone megatemples before ancient Egypt was even a twinkle in Ra's celestial eye. Either way, your brain's going to need a juice box after this. Okay, let's say you're an ancient builder. You've got no cranes, no steel, and your wheel technology is basically circle-shaped rock. What do? Naturally, you decide to move 200-ton limestone blocks with surgical precision across uneven terrain and stack them like a game of Jenga designed by sadists. Because that's what the builders of the Sphinx Temple did. These stones aren't just big, they're stupidly big. One block weighs more than a blue whale, a very moist, agitated blue whale. Some theories say workers dragged the stones on sledges greased with water, which sounds doable until you remember there's no Amazon Prime delivery for labor laws back then, and the physics still scream, nope. Let's do the math. A 200-ton block dragged by, say, 1,000 people who somehow don't get crushed when it tips. That's not architecture. That's a logistical horror movie. Now imagine placing those blocks perfectly in tight, interlocking formations. No cranes, no forklifts, just ancient determination and wildly suspicious engineering skills. Modern engineers look at this and go, yeah, we'd struggle with that. And these people were supposedly using copper chisels and optimism. Something doesn't add up, unless the real tools they used are conveniently missing from every archaeological record, like they ghosted history itself. So either, 1, the ancient Egyptians had technology we've never found or understood, or 2, someone else built it long before them, and the Egyptians just added some flair and took credit like the world's oldest home renovators. Either way, this temple is basically the ultimate IKEA nightmare. No instructions, no screws, weighs 200 tons, and somehow still aligned to the sunrise. You know what's worse than a neighbor who builds a giant Sphinx statue next to your house? A neighbor who also aligns their mysterious stone temple to the equinox sunrise, because nothing screams ancient secrets like celestial precision baked into your foundation. Yes, the Sphinx Temple isn't just a random pile of rocks. It's got a cosmic compass. The whole structure is eerily aligned to the rising sun on the spring and autumn equinoxes. You know, those magical moments when the earth doesn't lean like a confused giraffe and day equals night. Now, this level of astronomical awareness suggests the builders were either A, way too obsessed with their calendar app, or B, possessed a sky-watching, star-mapping, time-keeping brain that makes your smartwatch look like a potato with a strap. This wasn't a fluke. Aligning a multi-hundred-ton structure with the equinox isn't something you eyeball with a stick and some sand. It requires a precise understanding of Earth's axial tilt, solar movement, and probably the ability to not pass out from heat stroke while doing math in a desert. And remember, this was supposedly built in 2500 BCE, right around the time most humans were still arguing over who gets the last piece of fire. So either the Egyptians had secret astronomers with PhDs in sun stuff, or someone before them already knew the skies better than your average NASA intern. Combine this with the monolithic construction, the erosion patterns, and the eerie silence of no inscriptions. And you've got the architectural equivalent of, "This doesn't belong here." It's like finding a Tesla factory in a Viking village. Cool, but deeply suspicious. Let's talk vibes. No, not your crystals or moon water, I mean architectural vibes, because when you compare the Sphinx Temple to other Old Kingdom temples, something's off. Like wearing a tuxedo to a pool party off. Most temples from ancient Egypt are ornate. Columns shaped like papyrus stalks, colorful walls shouting stories about gods, pharaohs, and probably someone's goat taxes. They scream, "I am Egyptian and proud." But the Sphinx Temple, it's silent, squared off, and feels more like a brutalist fever dream than a holy sanctuary. No flashy artwork, no colorful murals. Just raw, giant limestone blocks stacked in a way that says, "We're not here to impress, we're here to last." It's like comparing a neon-lit Vegas wedding chapel to a Cold War nuclear bunker. Technically, both are buildings, but spiritually, they're on different planets. This design isn't Egyptian so much as primordial. It's minimalist in a way that feels intentional. Not "we ran out of budget" minimal, but more like "we've mastered permanence, now hush." The symmetry is uncanny, pillars placed with mathematical precision. Side chambers mirror each other like a stone Rorschach test. It doesn't scream religious ritual, it whispers cosmic alignment and megalithic legacy. So the big question, why would a civilization obsessed with detail, color, and symbolism suddenly drop everything to build a Minecraft fortress? Unless they didn't. Unless what we're looking at is something that predates all the papyrus flair. A design language that belonged to a different people, with a different purpose, operating under a completely alien mindset. Something functional, sacred, and meant to survive a very, very long time. Like maybe an architectural time capsule for us curious, sunburned humans to find thousands of years later and go, "Wait, this doesn't match." Okay, here's where things get even weirder. You know how the Sphinx Temple is made of those ginormous, perfectly interlocked stones? Well, it's not alone. Structures in Baalbek, Lebanon, and even parts of Peru use eerily similar construction methods. I'm talking megaliths the size of buses, fitted together so tightly you couldn't slide a piece of dental floss between them. Now, mainstream archaeology just kind of smiles awkwardly and mumbles something about independent development. As if cultures across the globe all just happened to decide one day, "Hey, let's move 200-ton stones and fit them together like a god-tier Lego set." But that's like 5 different people in 5 different countries independently inventing lasagna without ever meeting wheat, cheese, or fire. So we have to ask, were there shared techniques? Was there some kind of ancient global stoneworking starter pack? Or, brace yourself, was there a lost civilization spreading this knowledge around like the prehistoric version of Home Depot? We don't have written records, we don't have tools. What we do have is architectural DNA, scattered ruins that suggest whoever did this knew stuff we don't. Maybe even stuff we forgot. And if this is the case, that the Sphinx Temple isn't an isolated mystery but part of a much larger global pattern, then congratulations, you've just stepped out of History 101 and into the advanced class of what the actual hell. Either ancient people had more phone-a-friend connections than we ever gave them credit for, or someone way back when hit copy-paste across continents, left no explanation and dipped into legend. It's ancient architecture's version of, I'm not saying it was aliens, but I'm also not saying it. Let's get practical, or at least pretend to. If ancient Egyptians carved the Sphinx Temple with tools available in 2500 BCE, they were using copper chisels, stone hammers, and a whole lot of hope. Copper, by the way, is about as effective on limestone as a pool noodle is on drywall. You might scratch the surface. If you have 6 months, 2 assistants, and 0 expectations. So where are the tools that carved and shaped these blocks? Where are the ramps, the pulleys, the engineering debris? We've dug up toothbrushes from ancient tombs, but not the chisels that supposedly shaped 200-ton Lego blocks with interlocking edges. It's like someone cleaned up the entire construction site and left no trace. Which, if you've ever tried to get a contractor to pick up a single screw, is less plausible and more outright sorcery. Some skeptics suggest the tools were wooden sleds and elbow grease. Which is adorable, but even the most ambitious summer intern can't move a block the size of a mobile home across the sand with a tree branch and a dream. Others speculate that iron tools existed earlier than we thought, or even lost technology involving sound, vibration, or techniques that border on science fiction. And before you roll your eyes, remember, modern science still doesn't fully understand how the brain works or how cats purr. So maybe we shouldn't be so smug about ancient stone tech. The silence is suspicious. Either the tools were never there, or they were something completely different, something that doesn't fit into our tidy little textbook timeline. So maybe the reason we can't find the tools is because we're asking the wrong question. Maybe it's not, where are the tools? Maybe it's, who had the knowledge? And that question, that one's a rabbit hole with no floor. Let's play a little game of historical hide-and-seek. Imagine a civilization advanced enough to quarry, transport, and precisely position 100-ton stones. A culture that understood celestial alignments, architectural balance, and engineering tolerances tighter than a modern laser cutter. Now imagine they just disappeared. No warning, no sequel, no tragic last chapter scrawled on a cave wall saying, "Brub, society collapsing." If the Sphinx Temple wasn't built by the Egyptians we know, then who were these mystery masons? Where did they come from, and why did they vanish without so much as a meme carved into basalt? Some researchers have dared to say it. This could be evidence of a lost civilization. Not Atlantis-level fantasy, but a real pre-dynastic culture that existed thousands of years earlier, during or before the Younger Dryas. A period of sudden, brutal climate chaos around 10,800 BCE that may have wiped out entire societies like a prehistoric Ctrl+Alt+Delete. Think about it. If such a civilization was coastal, as many were, rising sea levels would have drowned their cities. If they were small and scattered, they could have been erased by sand, time, and the world's collective historical amnesia. Poof. Gone. All that remains, a few hulking stone monuments too big to throw away, which brings us back to the Sphinx Temple, a massive architectural ghost story. And honestly, if you're an ancient civilization about to be erased by a cataclysm, maybe the best plan is to leave one last calling card made of indestructible limestone. A monument that says, "We were here, and we were terrifyingly good at stacking rocks." So while textbooks stick to safe pharaoh timelines, the temple just sits there, giant, mute, and kinda smug, daring us to notice what doesn't add up. And once you do, you can't unsee it.